Welcome back to Settlement Nation podcast, your favorite trial lawyer and high performer show. Today, I have a great guest with me, Lauren Wood from the Omega Law Group out of California. Lauren has obtained hundreds of 6- and 7-figure verdicts and settlements for her clients and has tried numerous cases to verdict, either as a solo attorney or lead chair. She has extensive experience in arbitration and settling cases through mediation, which we're also going to talk a little bit about today. She's been named as Southern California's Super Lawyers Rising Star every year since 2016 and has served on the board and as part of many local and state lawyer organizations. She's also the founder of the Women in Trial Travel Summits, which is fast becoming a fan favorite amongst the legal community as the place for women to go, network, and create more intimate friendships and connections within this space. Now, these are not your average lawyer conferences, as some of the locations this year include Peru, Bali, and Hong Kong, which I can't wait to get onto those topics. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me, Courtney. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I cannot wait to dive into this episode. For everyone listening, I actually heard about Lauren and her travel summits through a colleague of mine, and she was raving about them. So I couldn't wait to get you on. But first off, just always as the beginning, I want to know, what was the catalyst or what prompted you that made you want to be a trial lawyer?
Oh, shoot. That's actually a really difficult question, because I really wish I had one of those mind-blowing stories that everyone has about how something in their life just drastically changed their life and they wanted to do, good and help other people. But I sort of just went the boring route. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career. I was in school. I was a poli-sci major. I liked the law, or I thought maybe I would. And so I went to law school. And then when I was in law school, I ended up working with a plaintiff's personal injury firm for a little bit. And then I also worked with an asbestos defense firm. And so both civil litigation, I didn't necessarily know I wanted to be a trial lawyer. I just liked litigation. And then it wasn't until I was thrown in and tried my first case solo as an associate that I really figured out that was what I love.
I love that. Now, on that topic, I know a lot of lawyers that sort of writing questions to the show, they always want to ask the guests, how do you get trial experience as a young lawyer? Some of them say, is it, I'll just try any case at any time. For you, how did you get thrust into the courtroom being an associate?
That is a really good question. I got very lucky. I was with a firm where it was formerly Shermer and Drain. Eventually I made partner at the firm, and my former boss, then partner, he and his father owned the firm and had this trial firm for many years. And they just said, we're going to throw you right in. We're willing to spend the money. We're going to find a case where probably there's a zero offer, and this one was it. And it was also disputed liability. So it was very, very difficult. And they basically made the decision as a business decision, and for my personal development, to spend the money to try a case that probably most people wouldn't. It wasn't a huge case, and I had, I think, 2 experts, so it didn't cost a lot, but inevitably it was, something. And usually I think those decisions would be to not move forward because the finances don't make sense. But that's how I got my first trial. And I am, like I said, I'm very lucky in that regard. As it relates to advice, I mean, certainly trying any case you can, try the hard ones. I think that a lot of mistakes that newer young lawyers make is they want that perfect case. They want perfect liability. They want a great client, no prior injuries, and those don't exist, and they especially don't exist when you're a young lawyer or new lawyer. And so you have to try the hard ones. You have to try the ones that you think you might lose, and you have to be of the understanding and ready to lose if that's what's in the cards. The reality is trials are hard to come by, no matter how desperately you want a case to go to trial, those are the ones that always settle, right?
Right.
The really good cases settle. And then when we really, really want it to happen is almost always when it does. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I haven't been in trial like that much. I'm not an ABOTA member, but I have prepped, probably 5 times the amount of cases I've actually tried, because they, the more you work them up and the better you work them up and the closer you get to trial, even after experts, they settle too. So.
Right. Now, in that process, I want to talk a little bit about trial versus settlement. How do you decide which route to go or what is best for the client? So as you said, sometimes you're working it up and you think you're going to go to trial that does settle, but do you have any process or anything that you use when you're trying to figure out what's best?
Obviously the client's interests are number one. I think it varies case by case. There are varying degrees, right? You could have a client who is really adamant about trial, and maybe you give them, what it boils down to is just making sure that they have all of the appropriate information so that they can make the decision. I make the recommendation. I go through all the pros and cons. I talk about costs. I talk about experts. I talk about what I think the case might be worth or what we could get at trial, pros, cons of the venue, things like that. I try cases typically in Ventura County, which is a more conservative jurisdiction. So that usually factors into it. And then after you've given them all the information, let them decide. Obviously, if you have good client control, they'll usually do what you suggest. And I think whether or not to try the case really just, it depends on a lot of factors, but ultimately what the client wants to do.
That's great. And also, speaking of trial, you've had some really great results in your bio from the verdicts that you've had. Why do you think you're able to ask for such, big numbers, but also achieve them?
I really don't think there's any secret to that. I think that if you work up your cases properly and you don't hide the ball and you give them all the information they need to, at least in terms of settlement, if you're talking settlement, the way to get cases settled is to give the carrier as much information as they need to properly evaluate the case and pay it, make it hard for them to pay it. If you're actually aggressive and working up your case and constantly moving the case forward, they'll notice. They'll also notice if you're sleeping and not doing anything. And so that's clearly the way to settle cases. Like I said, with trial though, I feel like maybe it's more for me and not, I don't know, these big guys that try cases all the time. I feel like trials sometimes are just like unicorns. All the perfect things have to fall into place to actually happen. No matter how hard you try, I love to be in trial more, but like I said, the good cases settle, the bad ones settle for reasons that we don't like talking about.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really great advice. Now, speaking of your image, when you walk into a courtroom or even just any room that you're in, do you have a image that you want to project to, say, the jury, the judge, the other lawyers in the room, in terms of how do you want to be seen when you enter a room?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that.
Oh, good. I'm happy about that, a new one.
I like this question. First of all, I try to be the nicest person in the room, which is kind of amusing because I can be known to be aggressive and maybe not so nice with opposing counsel usually. But in trial in front of a jury, I want to be just like sweet as pie. And I play up the nice girl card and, I play up the female card too, especially when opposing counsel is male and an asshole. I use that to my advantage, like every time. And in my experience, the worse they are to me, the more demeaning or loud they are, the better the verdict is for me, or the better the response I get from the jury. So I do use that. And then the other side of it is, you'll hear so many trial lawyers out there talking, particularly obviously plaintiff lawyers saying, you can't wear a nice suit. Like there are certain people who wear like the same suit to trial that they've been wearing for like 20 years, whatever. And nothing, I agree, obviously it shouldn't be flashy, but for me, I want to be comfortable. I want to feel powerful. And, you know, if feeling powerful and put together means wearing a nice suit, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to put on an ill-fitting suit that's like tattered. It doesn't work for me. And if I don't feel my best self and I don't feel organized and put together, it really will. It sort of leaks into other parts of my life, and I just not as on my game.
No, I love that. Actually, Angela Bruno, who was another lawyer that we had on the podcast, she said that her shoes are like part of her sort of suit of armor, that she has to wear great shoes. I love that. So do you have something that you wear that's maybe, is it like a special piece of jewelry or shoes or something that you do that's like your thing that you get to have control over that gives you that extra edge?
You know, I wish I could say it was a fabulous pair of shoes. It's not, but I do. And actually it's the inspiration for one of my group trips. But before the pandemic, I was going to Hong Kong right around once a year to get suits made. And so I think my armor would be a tailor-made bespoke suit.
Love that.
Fits really well. And, you know, it doesn't have to be flashy, but just a nice navy fitted suit.
Yes. Perfect. Now, last sort of questions on the trial route, you know, or even just as being a female attorney in this space, in the plaintiff space, because it is very tiny for everyone listening, especially males, might not realize how small the female plaintiff trial lawyer group is. What are some challenges that you've faced over the course of your career, if any?
Oh, well, that's a funny additive at the end because it's a lot. I mean, challenges. There are too many to list. I mean, I think as a younger female lawyer, it was just not being taken seriously. You know, you just have to fight harder. And I found that so frustrating. Now I kind of can laugh it off, but it really did used to bother me. You know, I had a judge call me young lady in front of the jury once, and it was in the context of like scolding me too. So that was not fun. Little things like that, but you know, I'd like to say we kind of get used to it. We shouldn't, but I'm sure maybe we just get thicker skin over the years, and maybe the landscape has changed. I do think the landscape has changed a little, even since I've been in practice, a little, and so for that I'm grateful. But you know, maybe our coat of armor just gets a little bit stronger.
That's fantastic. Now we're going to transition to your Women in Trial Travel Summits. First of all, you know, I know that you have a travel blog. You love travel, obviously, yourself. But what was the catalyst? You've been in this industry for so long, and I'm sure you've been to every different event that's been out there. What made you think, you know what, there's space for me to start my own, and also I want to start my own?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, travel influenced it first and foremost. I just wanted to figure out a way to get women to travel more, get out of the office more, take time for themselves. And obviously with my love of travel, doing these events in international destinations was a big part of it. But I also saw a need after, as you correctly pointed out, after going to, you know, hundreds of conferences. You know, I really love conferences. I always have. But there are some things about the conferences that are in our profession that I don't love, and that I know a lot of women don't love. And it just seemed like a good opportunity to create a safe space where we could learn from one another and really share information about our cases without any fear of, like, say, you know, someone implying that they should take the case over. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, when I had the event, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. In fact, more so than I could have ever imagined. And those were some of the comments that were made, you know, having a safe space and feeling as though the women could not only like let their hair down, but legitimately open up to one another a little bit more, both personally and professionally. And I think that's really important.
And for someone that's looking to attend your Mexico event that you have for this year, what can they expect? And then we'll move on to the small group ones. But for the big one, what can they expect by going if they're a first timer?
Yeah, so that one is more what you would expect at a typical conference. So next year's event is just slightly different than last year. I added one additional day, but essentially it's over 5 days. The first day is a welcome reception. Most flights from the U.S. arrive in the late afternoon, and so you land in beautiful Punta de Mita, Mexico. Arrive for a welcome reception, and that's all there is for the first day. And then over the next 4 days, there are speaker sessions in the mornings, and they're intentionally held only in the mornings, nothing past like noon or 12:30, so that the attendees can enjoy themselves. Why would everyone go all the way to beautiful Punta Mita and spend the entire day inside?
Right.
You certainly get plenty of hours of MCLEs, and we have some fabulous speakers. I don't know how I got so lucky with this group of women who have said yes. But yeah, and then there are social events thrown in. Not a packed calendar. That was one of the things that I did very intentionally. I wanted to leave space so that people could do things on their own, or, for example, visit nearby Sayulita, lay by the pool, whatever, but there's just enough networking and learning and fun.
I love that. Now, speaking about your small group trips, what is the difference between these ones and, say, your Mexico trip? And then what would someone expect if they're like, what, I love the sound of this. I've always wanted to go to Bali or Hong Kong. What are the types of things that you have scheduled for those?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I would say the small group trips are more travel-based with some MCLEs thrown in, right? It's really a hosted trip, especially all of the trips are specially curated by me. And they're anywhere from like 8 to 12 women. I think Bali, where I might be able to fit a little bit more than that, but they're small. They're kept intentionally small. And then we do MCLEs. So for example, the Tuscany one that Angela attended, it was over, I think 7 or 8 days. And we did, MCLEs every morning over breakfast. And so you'd have one speaker, and it was really efficient. So efficiency is part of it, right? You want to be able to, especially if you're traveling to a fabulous place like Italy, you don't want to be spending your time inside, but you're still getting these MCLEs. You're still learning from one another. And actually, the small group setting for I've so far only done ethics for the small groups, and it's really nice because you can have candid conversations in a more intimate setting. And so, yes, an hour of MCLEs, usually either every morning or one like half day where we'll do maybe 3 hours all at once. And then the focus is to really enjoy the location, connect with the attendees on an even more intimate level, because there's just about 8 to 12 of you, and travel.
Right.
Travel.
So from your Tuscany trip last year, what would you say that was the highlight for you, other than having all these great women together in a group? Was there some activity that you'd planned that was better than what you expected?
Oh gosh. Well, I was really, really excited for the truffle hunting, which was fabulous. And the truffle hunters dug Mela, I think, was a big hit with everyone. But what surprised me was the cooking class. We did a cooking class with Cristiana and Mama Nora, and we made ravioli, tiramisu, fresh pasta by hand. And the two women who hosted us, one in particular, Christiana, was hilarious and had us in fits all day. And so that, I think I expected it to be good, but I would qualify it as great.
So good. And why do you think the people that have attended your trips are such big fans? Like, what do you think is the standout sort of takeaway that they get?
Oh, that's a really tricky question. I'd like to say, I mean, I really do think a lot of it just has to do with experiencing these fabulous destinations with your peers, your colleagues, women who share similar interests to you, because, we're all lawyers, or we're, all in the legal industry, and that automatically connects us in some way. So if you don't know anyone at all, you automatically have that connection. But I also think that, or I'd like to think that the reason the trips are so well received is because I do put a ton of work into them. I'm very OCD. I obsess over every little detail. I research. I scour. If it's someplace I try to pick places I've been and obviously destinations I've been, because I'd like to hold myself out as a sort of an expert in the area, but also restaurants and things. And if I haven't been there, I really do the work to make sure that I research it and hope that it ends up being a good option. And so far, things have worked out. Knock on wood.
For any female attorneys or women in the legal space listening, is there still time to book a ticket for the Punta Mita event or sign up for your group events this year? How do they do that?
Oh, yes. Okay. So Punta Mita is April 12th through 16th, 2023. There is plenty of time to book for that. I do have a special code for the podcast. Yes. So the code is trial lawyer, all one word, caps, and that'll give you $50 off your ticket. The Mexico conference is obviously there's space for a lot more people than the small group trips. But I do have Peru coming up. That's going to be a pretty amazing trip. I actually have to give a shout out to my sponsor, Rosa Florentino of Quest Settlements. She's incredible. And in that small group trip, we are going to go to Cusco and Machu Picchu, which is a trip I did just last year with two trial lawyers, Michelle West and Megan Klein, and we had a fabulous time. And I'm basically just redoing that trip because it was perfect. It's quick and should be a lot of fun. And then, of course, I've got Bali in June and Hong Kong in the fall, October.
Is amazing. I mean, just hearing about these things, I was lucky enough to go to Hong Kong in December. Just for a quick trip coming back from Australia. And it was amazing. I did not have enough time there.
Yes!
So, yeah. So for people who want custom suits or just to see what it's like, I mean, it's so clean, so amazing, so orderly. Mm-hmm. You're like stepping into the future. It's very cool. So that, and, I've been to Bali too, and Bali is amazing. So, for anyone listening, I'll put the code in the show notes as well so that you don't miss out on that. Make sure you book your tickets. Now, Lauren, we have 2 questions left. I mean, time flies when you're having fun.
It really does.
I know.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah. So 2 questions to go. As a female lawyer, what is some advice you have for other lawyers listening, male or female, whether they're starting out or they're seasoned? What's something that was maybe told to you that you think is important to share with others?
Oh, that's tricky. As it relates to trial experience, I would say maybe I suppose it depends on whether or not you're on your own or with a firm. If you're on your own, ask to co-counsel on a case with a trial lawyer that you know. Sorry, men, but if you're a woman, ask another female trial lawyer. There are plenty of us, right? Doesn't have to be one of the guys. And so, if you have a case that you think might go to trial, reach out to someone and see if they'd be willing to co-counsel on it with you. That gives you trial experience, and it's a win-win for everyone.
Fantastic. And I definitely do agree. I think Women should be supporting other women in the industry, and there's a lot of you out there, and if you go to one of Lauren's events, you'll meet many more, so that's a good incentive to go. You might get a case, you might be able to find someone to co-counsel a case with. Yeah. Last question, Lauren. What is something you know now that you wish you knew 10 years ago as an attorney?
10, exactly. Well, okay. I'll say 12.
Yes, you can pick your exact number. It's fine.
I wish someone told me earlier, before I started my career, just how amazing it is to actually be a plaintiff's lawyer. I was under the misimpression that, I wanted which I know is not real, but now I know it's not real, but the glitz and glamour of like a, high-powered defense firm, all that garbage. I had no idea. And thank God I didn't go to a defense firm. I would hate my life. And when I have an opportunity to speak with young lawyers, without disparaging the defense, like a lot of younger lawyers approach me and say, wow, my gosh, you travel a lot. How are you able to do that? I said, well, it's because I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. I mean, I can, for the most part, unless I'm in trial, I can make my schedule. And even that is malleable. I was supposed to be in trial and I was supposed to answer ready tomorrow, but I made counsel and the judge aware of my conflict. And, they're usually very understanding especially if you're open and upfront about stuff like that. You just say like, look, I'm unavailable. Like judges especially know that we have lives. It's okay to say I'm unavailable. I have a trip, or I have a speaking engagement, or I want to take my son to a baseball game. Like that's okay. We have lives and families. And so I have always tried to be more mercenary about my schedule. And so far it hasn't backfired, knock on wood. But yeah, I don't know. I sort of lost my train of thought on that one. But yes, the question is advice. I would definitely tell younger lawyers that it's so much better not to have to bill hours. Mm-hmm. And we get to help our clients, and we get to try cases and speak to juries. And I couldn't imagine a better profession. I just wish someone had told me how great it was earlier on, so I could just go straight there,
right,
and not have to, figure it out by doing other things.
I love that. And so this is the time where you get to plug yourself. How do people get in touch with you? Maybe they want to book a ticket. Maybe they want to email you because they're like, I want you to co-counsel my case with me. Instagram handles, let's get everything.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So it's a mouthful, but the website is the best way to get information about the Women in Trial Travel Summit. It's www.womenintrialtravelsummit.com. And so my email, even though it's also long, is just Lauren@womenintrialtravelsummit.com. I probably shouldn't put my cell phone on here, but email me. And if you want to ask information about a case, you want advice, or maybe you want to consider co-counseling, that's great. I would say just email me and we can exchange information and chat. Now at Omega, we've got some fabulous female trial lawyers. In fact, my colleague Lourdes Diarmas is in trial right now. And then we should be trying a case together soon. So we are trying cases, and call us.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. And for everyone listening, I'm actually going to Mexico. So I'm not just talking about this. It's actually something that I'm going to be attending, which is super exciting. I can't wait. But for everyone who loved this episode, make sure you share some love with Lauren. Send her an email if you have any questions for her. I will put the links to the Women in Trial Travel Summit, the website, Instagram, and her email at the bottom of the show notes, as well as the code to get your percentage off your ticket. Don't wait. It will sell out and you will miss out and cry because it's going to be so much fun. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us on the podcast.